Hey guys, Mega Man NG here, and we are back for another weekly review of Gotham. This week's episode it came out yesterday, but I want to cover my thoughts on it today. Today's episode is Strike Force, and this is episode 4 of the second season of Gotham, as I will mention that there will be spoilers, so if you have not seen the episode, watch it, then come back to the review. And yeah, I'm going to be saying it now, spoiler alert. And plus, there's a lot to say here in this episode because this was pretty interesting. However, I'm still not happy over Jerome's death as of last week. However, his death now has a role in this episode. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to be explaining the plot along with the many other plots that are along with it. And I'm going to be providing my thoughts about the episode, my favorite moments, and the least favorite moments. Alright, so let's get to it. After the craziness that happened last episode with Jerome's death, it's now caused panic and disorder all over Gotham. And when I mean panic and disorder, I mean with all the bad people that are there killing and causing disasters and everything. It's crazy. And the episode starts off with Cobblepot amassing all the different gangs together in hopes of having the city be taken over. That gets put to rest when Theo's sister comes by and says he wants to speak with Cobblepot. Now, you can pretty much tell that's going to be a bad sign. Especially since Cobblepot does meet with Theo Gavelman. And they discuss plans on the future of Gotham. Theo provides him an offer, but Cobblepot refuses, so Theo decides to go one step further by having his mom hostage. I like how Theo just decides he goes calm and suave one minute, and the next throws a curveball and makes you have no choice. Otherwise, he kills someone that matters to you. And that's what I like about the episode. Though it does lead up to the Penguin started killing important figures of Gotham, all to enact Theo's plan to run for mayor. Yeah, that I believe is the main focus of the episode, since Theo wants to have Gotham in the palm of his hand, and he's willing to manipulate anyone or anything to do it. Goes to show how dangerous he is as a villain, and I really do like that. Oh, and yeah, there is another plot that goes on. After with the previous commander's death, or the commissioner, Sarah's gone, a new commissioner takes over, going by the name of Nathaniel Barnes. He becomes the new boss of GCPD and decides to bring some order back in line. Yeah, he started things off by just changing things around, firing several of Gotham PD, even having one be arrested, and having Gordon be his second in command. What I noticed about the episode with Gordon and Nathaniel is that the two actually served in the army, which I've noticed already when Nathaniel read Gordon's resume and everything, seeing that he was in the army. So, and not to mention the salute, which also goes back to the army days. With Gordon as a second in command, they decide to form a strike force hoping to go after Gotham's biggest criminals. And I really did like the scene when they met the new recruits and saw some of them having their motivations. Some of them are honorable and good. And seeing them all in uniform together was just awesome. I'm struggling to find the right words for it because there was a lot of good things about the episode. There really was. And not to mention, there was also another plot with Bruce Wayne. And before I explain about Bruce, Alfred does confront Selina. Too bad Alfred decides to strike back by slapping her. Yeah, I didn't really like the smacking, but it did provide some consequences, which I will be explaining later on. Also, regarding Bruce Wayne, there is a plot where Bruce has to undergo training. Yeah, one of the training exercises, giving him regular clothes and having him learn how to walk. If that's not training, I don't know what is. I really don't. And there was also another plot where Edward Nigma confronts his other self, his doppelganger. And then he finally decides to have the balls to ask Kristen out to dinner, and they have their date. It was kind of nice, but rather out of the blue. It just happened for no apparent reason, no build-up whatsoever. That kind of turned me off a little. So, what do I think of the episode? The episode wasn't an improvement over last week's, but it is good on its own because of the many plots that happen and how they're all woven together. Not to mention, it was intense. It did have some action, especially when the GCPD took on SAS. Sure, Zaz did get hit, and the GCPD did suffer some casualties, but it was a pretty intense fight, I tell you. Pretty intense. Now then, there was also another part of the bit with Bruce Wayne having his dinner with Theo Gavelman, and it shows a bit of his good guy personality. Basically, he can be a bad guy, but he's also a bit of a kind person. which I will explain a bit more when we get to the favorite moments. Speaking of which, we may as well cover them right now. Theo being one hell of a bad guy, but at the same time he can be a bit of a nice guy. And I love this dynamic. I really like this dynamic because Theo actually knows how to pull it off. One minute you see him planning, manipulating. You can see him gearing himself up for whatever it is. And on the other side, he can be a bit of a kind person. Especially during that scene when he went out with dinner with Bruce thanking him. Not to mention, he also got to meet, well, Bruce Wayne actually got to meet a girl, Silver St. Cloud. And it's a pretty interesting dynamic. It really is pretty interesting seeing Silver in the show. And the relationship, I think, between Bruce and Silver will be interesting, but we'll see how it goes out. Another favorite moment I liked was when Captain Barnes and Gordon, or rather Commissioner Barnes, they put their efforts together in forming the Strike Force, as well as meeting the new recruits. It was actually a pretty good thing. It was actually pretty good. And I really liked how many of the new recruits show off as being strong and showing off their motivations, having their reasons for wanting to be part of something bigger. And when the Strike Force was formed together, it was all the more epic. Another favorite moment I liked. Penguin at work doing what he can to abide by Theo's wishes, because let's be honest, Penguin was already king of the hill, or rather king of Gotham, until Theo shows up, throws a curveball because he refused to answer Theo's request, and now that with his mother hostage, he doesn't have a choice because if he doesn't do it, his mother's dead, and that can really piss him off. The ending at the end is proof of that, and he was like, what could he do? He doesn't have a choice. He really doesn't have a choice, because when you have to deal with some crazy-ass villain like Theo, all bets are off. Although there was a favorite moment I did like, not to mention, it's also something I didn't like. Nigma finally having the balls to ask Kristen out, and at the end of their date, they kiss. It just came right out of left field, and I was cheering for Edward Nigma finally getting himself the girl, and it was pretty nice. But at the same time, as right now we're moving on to least favorite moments, it was something I didn't like because it just came out of nowhere. No build-up, no development, no nothing. It was just something that happened. I mean, come on, the least they could do is start building up a friendship, but no, they just have to rush it through. It's something I didn't like, honestly. Not to mention Alfred smacking Selina, which, seriously, why would Alfred smack a girl, a little girl, like a teenage girl? It's not right. Not to mention the consequences that follow, because I feel that this would make Selina more cold and distant. And since the fact that Bruce is now with another girl, Silver St. Cloud, yeah, it's going to build up a bit of jealousy and rage. You already know that Selina works for Cobblepot, so who knows what could happen. Although, if there was another thing I didn't like, it was the portrayal of Nathaniel Barnes. Yeah, he was here in the season. He just came out as being a hard ass. He didn't just come out of being a hard ass. He just came out just right out of the blue and just basically set things in line. Although I like this, yeah, to be honest, I didn't really like that much because he felt being too bossy. He felt being too bossy on especially people that were corrupt within the GCPD and had no shame. I understand that he wants to clean up Gotham for the better, but in all honesty, I feel that he's just like a baby. But what more can I do? Because Gotham is never always straight. You never walk the straight and narrow. There are many twists and turns that it basically makes things more difficult than you can imagine. Although I didn't really like his portrayal as much, I did like the fact that him and Gordon were able to get new recruits in. So, at least that's a given. Apologies if this review isn't really as great as I thought it would be. But yeah, I had to write down a lot just so I can plan it all. And plus, this review is unscripted, so if you notice me talking out of place and everything, I apologize. Let's move on to the final verdict. And as always, the final verdict, all scores for the review are opinionated. So if you feel like you want to disagree with me, you're more than welcome to. Final score for Strike Force is a 7 out of 10. I'm giving it a 7 because it was a good episode. It was a good episode. It did have some action. It did have some humor. I should have mentioned there was one bit that was really funny. It was like one of the Penguin's goons holding on to two people was like, don't worry, relax, it'll all be over soon. And I just couldn't help but laugh at it. It was just humorous. There was some good action. There was some good humor. There was some good emotion, good development. It was good all around. Not to mention new characters are being introduced. Although some episodes and some stuff kind of hampered it. Not to mention after what happened last week, I'm still on the fence over it. Because, like I said, Jerome's the best thing I liked about Gotham. And with him gone, it just kind of made me lose my interest in it a little. But hopefully, I hope the rest of the season can hopefully more than make up for it. That's about it for this episode review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I apologize if it's a bit stuttery or everything. I hope to correct this in the future. And as always, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to hit the like button. It does mean a lot to me. And I will see you all next time. Or rather next week, because tomorrow I'll be showing off my review of The Flash. And boy, I'm going to have a field day with that. Flash of Two Worlds. See you guys next week for the next episode review of Gotham. Peace out.